And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
You heard me at the opening of the program speak to GM's current situation. They've announced that they're recalling an additional 971,000 cars with this ignition recall, in addition to the 1.6 million. Joining us is David E. Johnson, CEO of Strategic Vision, which is a leading public relations and branding agency. For more information, David, I want to welcome you to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thanks for joining us just on such short notice.
Thank you. It's great to be on.
How serious is this GM crisis?
Well, it remains to be seen how serious, how grave it's going to be. And when I say that, I'm referring to, will there be additional recalls? We know just today Chevrolet issued a statement saying not to sell any more Cobalts, but no reason was given of why they were taking this action. We're still waiting to see what other shoes are going to drop. Are there going to be more recalls? Have we reached the end of the recall? And also what Mary Barra is going to say when she testifies before Congress. We do know, monitoring social media, however, the GM brand has not taken the hit that Toyota and other companies have taken in the past when they have faced a recall. Basically, monitoring social media, we see that right now consumer sentiment is basically neutral toward General Motors. It has not drastically changed. This could change, however, if something comes out that GM was aware of this, Mary Barra was aware of this prior to when they said they were, or if Mary Barra, who made a very strong presentation last week in trying to defuse the situation, is caught in a lie. That's what we're waiting for right now, to see what else there is. If nothing further comes out, I think GM is going to weather the storm and actually be stronger down the road than they were before the recall.
And David, do you think that her appointment as CEO and that selection prior to this event surfacing, do you think that was by choice specifically? Obviously, the next CEO from Ackerman is important, but do you think that the fact that she is a woman and has experience with GM from way back within, do you think that has a bearing on the fact that she'll be testifying?
I think it really does. I think the fact that she brings a new face to GM. Remember, GM in the past has had the reputation of moving as fast as moving an aircraft carrier. She gives a breath of fresh air, a new face to General Motors. Also, she's really putting across the message that it's a new General Motors now, that addresses the consumers, investors, and also employees, which are often overlooked during that time of crisis. If we look at some of Barra's moves, they have been specifically addressed at employees to raise morale within General Motors while not overlooking the other critical stakeholders, the investors and the consumers.
Well, GM, the scrutiny, of course, now, since they first learned of the ignition problems back in 2001, they spent more than a decade studying the problem without recalling the vehicles. Why do you think it took so long before they actually took action?
I believe some of it was probably bureaucracy. Some of it was trying to ascertain what was going wrong. Remember, Barra, in her defense, has been stating over and over they were not really aware of what was causing this, if the deaths were related to this ignition problem until recently. This is really what's going to be very critical in the congressional testimony and what comes out for General Motors. If that statement holds, General Motors and Barra are okay. If it is disproven, then we have a bigger crisis for General Motors, and we'll see consumers really deserting them. Because in any crisis, it's not the actual crisis that gets you in trouble. It's how you handle the crisis, or if you're caught in a lie in dealing with the crisis. That's what we're waiting to see right now for General Motors. Have there been any falsehoods? If so, General Motors will lose consumer sentiment, and they will be in very much the same way that Toyota was during their recall, if not even worse.
Got it. We're talking with David Johnson, who is the CEO of Strategic Vision, LLC, a leading public relations and branding agency. David, one last question, put yourself in GM's shoes. What would you do?
Well, I advise my clients when I'm dealing with crisis communications is be proactive. Get as much information out right away. Tell your side of the story, even if it's going to harm you. The reason I say this is you have some control over the narrative at that point. You're given credit for getting everything out. Show that you're apologetic, which Barra has done. Show that you understand why consumers are upset. Also state over and over again that you're finding a solution. Specifically, right now, I would recommend that Barra reach out to the victims' families who have suffered during this recall. We often hear from the family members of previous recalls that they never heard from the corporation. All they wanted to do was hear from the corporation. Barra should speak to them directly in her testimony, in her crisis communications efforts. The other thing I would recommend GM to do is publicize to all their consumers loud and clear that when you bring in your car because it's been affected by the recall, GM will reimburse you by giving you a free loaner car while they correct the problem. That's GM's policy, but they haven't been publicizing it. A lot of consumers don't know that. They need to be proactive in showing how they're addressing it, how they're even taking a financial hit to fix this problem for the consumer. They need to get their message out. As I always advise clients, the lawyers never want you to say anything, never want you to admit any responsibility. But the best thing for a corporation in a crisis is not to listen to that legal advice, but to be proactive. Apologize, admit there was a problem, state what you're doing to correct the problem, and move forward.
I like the moving forward. No doubt in the last 5 years, GM has moved forward, and they've definitely and are making some great cars. With regard to the cars that have been have a stop sale, it is quite common in the industry, not only for GM, but for all OEMs to put stop sales on automobiles that have to be tweaked or have to be retuned or reprogrammed, some particular part of the automobile. So with that respect, I will give GM the benefit of the doubt, and I want to thank you for being proactive and being so readily available for me this morning. And I just learned of your agency. And for our Car Clinic listeners and viewers, give us your website so that we can get more information from your company with regard to GM's futures.
Sure, they can visit strategicvision.biz, B-I-Z.
David Johnson, CEO of Strategic Vision. That's strategicvision.biz. David, thanks so much for joining us here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic today.
Thank you.